in one universal cause, in one common faith. So that's just an overview of the Baha'i faith. And some of the principles of the Baha'i faith are the oneness of mankind, the independent investigation of the truth, and the idea that all religions are one, and that there is one under one God. And so that we are living on this planet as one human family, like the flowers blending together in one garden of humanity. So on that note, I'd like to introduce John Haines this morning. He is with us. John Haines is an author, a traveller, a spiritual seeker, a family man, and somewhat of a community worker, a community networker who brings people together in all sorts of spiritual contexts. Now, John has put out a book, has recently released a book called In Search of Sympathy. And so I'll be talking to John. Welcome, John, to the studio this morning.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for having me on. I do want to make a small correction, In Search of Simplicity.
Did I say?
I think you said sympathy, which is an interesting twist on terms.
Oh, okay.
I think that's not a bad one. I might have to work on that for a future title. I want to thank you again, Steve, for having me with you on the show, especially, I suppose, because I'm not officially a Baha'i, but because my beliefs meld so closely with what you've just mentioned about what Baha'i faith stands for. And that is that, for me, I look at that growing up in a family in Canada, in Anglican church, and singing in the church choir, which I love to do. And I never really rejected my religion, but I know that as a teenager, I had those kind of questions that I think a lot of people in my era of growing up had. What is the meaning of this when so many people in the world seem to be fighting with each other over their religion? So I've gone on a journey, which I've described in my book and in talks that I give with people. And the journey was one of, I think, broadening my perspective and cracking the egg of the original beliefs that I had. And it certainly hasn't taken me away from the original religion in which I was raised, but it's caused me to look at the world in a different way. And I think that it's been a really nice journey for me.
So you were raised as a Christian, but it's an advancement on your spiritual journey to explore other avenues and areas of spirituality on your search and on your travels?
Well, when I left Canada at the age of 25 and I went to Saudi Arabia as an advisor to Saudi Telecom, one of the questions that I had was just what I enunciated a moment ago, and that was why, here I am, I'm leaving the country that I was raised in for the first time, other than some travels that I'd done. But I'm going to live and work in another land, in another culture, surrounded by people of another religion in Saudi Arabia. And I was situated just outside the holy city of Medina. As non-Muslims, we were not allowed in the city of Medina. But as for anyone that doesn't know, Medina is where Muhammad led some of his campaigns and where he, I believe, is buried in a mosque in Medina. And so it was a very special opportunity for me to be right in the middle of another culture. And frankly, it opened my eyes up tremendously. First of all, I love the Bedouins. I think they're amazing people. They're so welcoming, it's part of their culture. You drive down the road and you'll see someone with a tent up. Even in today's world, you'll still sometimes see someone with a tent up, and they'll invite you in for gawa, coffee, or tea, chai. And so that was just, and they don't do it out of, well, this is something we need to do. It's from their hearts. I really appreciated that. I think the other thing that started to dawn on me when I was there was that I worked with, as I said, Muslims. I mean, that's most of the people I worked with. All the Saudis were Muslims, but also some of my colleagues, because I came over with Canadians, mostly from Ontario and Quebec, but also there were colleagues of mine that were from other countries who were working for Bell Canada International, the company that I worked for, and some of them, as an example, a very good friend of mine, was originally from Pakistan, but he had immigrated with his family to England, and he lived in Bradford in England, and he had been working in Saudi for quite a long time. And he spoke Urdu, he spoke Arabic, and he spoke English, all perfectly fluently. And he was at the next desk, so he was helping me with my Arabic. But he was also bringing me up to speed a little bit with what Islam meant to him. Not in a pushy way, in an informative way. And one of the things that I had no idea of was I hadn't studied this stuff. I just loved going to church as a boy. I have to say, sometimes church, when you're a young boy, when they're doing a sermon, that was pretty tedious. I think that would be the case in any religious edifice if you're a young person.
For young boys, yeah.
But we had Sunday school. I loved the parables. I thought they were great, and they're still meaningful to me. I love parables. But I had no idea of what Islam meant. I had no idea whatsoever. So here I was. I had a great opportunity. I had a teacher right there with me, a guy that I played squash with in the evenings, and we worked together during the day, and he would tell me a little bit about what Islam meant. And one of the things that immediately touched me was I realized in the teachings that are in the Quran was that Muhammad was a prophet, but he was only one of a lineage of prophets. That was their teaching.
Right.
Jesus came before him. His name in the Quran is Isa, but it's just a language thing. It's his name. And of course, it goes back to Moses and Noah and Abraham and all these other folks. So for me, that was a revelation in its own right. All of a sudden, I realized, my gosh, this thing that I had grown up with is only a part of a bigger picture.
Right.
Not at all to demean the personage of Jesus or his message, because to me he was and still is the personification of love. That's what he represents. But it gave me a perspective that was much broader, and that alone, and I had far more experiences when I left Saudi, and that's what I describe in Search of Simplicity, but that alone gave me a much better perspective on where what I grew up with sat in the greater scheme of things. And I think from that I could see, well, hang on, if that's the case, why are we fighting with each other?
Exactly.
I
Yes.
just couldn't see the point. And I think most people today would agree with that. Why are we fighting with each other over our beliefs? Whereas the essence of every religion and the essence of every teacher that the religions are based upon, because let's face it, most of the religions have come after the teachers.
Yes.
It's always about love. It's always about the golden rule, treating others as you would have them treat you, or slightly different words in every case, but it's essentially the same message. And there's a fundamental message in the Bible, and it's at the base of all the religions, that is that you look to God, or whatever term you want to use, and that's your principal point of focus rather than into the outer world. And I see that so important in our today's world, where we have become very materialistic. We're very focused on the outer things, and whereas Jesus and all the other teachers have said, hang on, look to the inner world, look to the spiritual world, look to the light first. Everything else, what did Jesus say? Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all else shall be added unto you.
That's right. Yeah.
That's it to me. That's the essence of all the religions. So for me, I've come to my own conclusion, my religion is love. That's how I look at it, Steve. If I can do my very best in my daily life to love everyone that I meet, and as a Christian, I would see Jesus in them. But maybe as a Muslim, I would see Muhammad in them. I don't think it matters. I'm going to see the essence of purity and the unquantifiable love that's inside of everyone. That's what I want to see in everyone. I can't say that I do it perfectly all the time, but that's what I would strive for.
Would you say all of the great religions and faiths throughout history have taught the same message? To love one another? The brotherhood of mankind? The
Absolutely.
oneness of God?
I would say that.
Yeah.
I would say also, though, that